Hello, everybody, and welcome to Problem Solve Her, fun, cool, sassy, innovative podcast for women and men of all ages. We have a man on again today because 25% of our viewers are men because they're smart and they want to know what women are thinking. And as Dagmar says, we don't subscribe to any sex. We're here for everybody. Daggy's in the house. Yay. My brother DG, Dylan's back in the house. Yeah. For those of you that don't know Dylan, he's my older brother. Wow, the crickets just went in the garbaggio. Dylan has a beautiful painting in the background that my mom made in Jamaica when we were growing up there. I love that painting. It's actually, Dylan, do you know what flower that is back there? That's a,
I think it's call it like a lobster flower, which is typically red and yellow and orange,
or like a, right,
that's blue.
right.
Same thing.
Yeah, or like its own version of a heliconia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey. Dagmar, why are we having Dylan back aside from our numbers are high and people love hearing a brother-sister
I want
duo?
to hear more about your Jamaica childhood and Jamaica lifestyle. That's very interesting to me and to our listeners. And I cannot wait to get insights, like real insights from you, not just tourism stuff.
No, we don't do tourism stuff. Dylan hanging out at 2 a.m, drinking rum, playing dominoes with the locals. There's nothing tourist about it. Not a damn thing.
Yeah. Actually, where we grew up in Jamaica, my older sister and I, where we spent half of our life growing up in Jamaica, called Port Antonio, was not a very big tourist area. As a matter of fact, it was very low on like the tourism, like pole. It was more of, they call it country. We're going to country. I was like in the country in the rural area. Most people say it was the most beautiful. I'm biased, but most people say it's the sweetest parish in Jamaica. And there was not a lot of tourist activities, although some tourists from outside areas used to come and do sightseeing because there was a lot of national treasures and really unique beaches and waterfalls and stuff like that. So they would like bust them in for the day sometimes, but it wasn't very touristy. It was like a lot of small boutique hotels and rental villas, and then a lot of locals.
Dylan, also remember, and Dad kind of coined this phrase years ago. We have to give him props because if we
I
don't,
was,
they would call Jamaica, Port Antonio, where we grew up, the Hamptons of Jamaica,
yeah,
because it was so lush in its beauty. And it was almost like the hidden gem for people. And a lot of locals, like Dylan said, they have villas there and they would go on the weekends. But a
well,
lot of
right,
famous people and
yeah,
movies were shot there because of
right.
its beauty. So Daniel Craig, who was 007 for the Bond for years, the last movie that he did, they shot in Jamaica they were there for almost 3 months. They took over our uncle's property and Beyonce shot a video there, Shakira. Our neighbors have a very famous music studio. So Gwen Stefani recorded an album there. That's why she named her son Kingston, because she loved Jamaica so
They
much.
also shot Lord of the Flies there at the beach across the street from our house.
I love with Balthazar Getty. Yeah, it was the remake of Lord of the Flies. And don't forget Robin Williams, who Dylan met. That's on a whole nother episode. They spent an entire day together. Cool Runnings was filmed there all over Port Antonio. And Cocktail, Tom Cruise is like one of his major big movies in the early days.
Yeah, exactly. Cocktail was down the road. Yeah, no, Chloe's right. There was a lot of kind of like famous people that would pop up a lot because it was a very unique, desirable location where I don't know, people want to check out. And I remember hearing that there was another wave of like another generation ago where like JFK Jr. and I think even like Marilyn Monroe, I don't know, all these people like old movie stars used to go to, and then once they all passed on, it was like nothing was going on for a while. And then it kind of like started, there was another like blooming going on. But it was a very unique place where people not a lot of people knew, but the people that did find out would always want to go because there was something very special and unique about it. It was like honestly, for me, it could have had to do with my childhood too, because I was just younger and had more innocence and curiosity about life. even as an adult now looking back, it was like a storybook. It was like something you read out of a storybook. It was just like so dreamy. I just remember it was just like all this like wildlife, and it was the paradise. I mean, Jamaica, the whole island of Jamaica. I'm sure all the Caribbean islands it's such a true paradise. It's all these exotic birds and plants and lush and vegetation, and like I used to walk down the hill and pick the honeysuckles and drink the coconuts and the mangoes and this, that, and the other thing. I mean, it was really like I was like felt like Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. I did. I totally did. I'm blessed to have.
That's so funny. Dylan, you mentioned JFK Jr. before. Mom and I saw him once in the
Yeah,
market with
right.
Daryl
Right.
Hannah when he was dating Daryl Hannah, the famous actress,
Yes,
before he
they
unfortunately passed
like
away.
to go there a lot. I don't know why.
Yeah. I think you also, you know why? A lot of celebrities would go there and still do because they can hide. There's no paparazzi there.
Right.
During COVID, this is really funny. I'm walking up the hill, Dagmar, up and down. I'm exercising every day. We had a curfew at 7 o'clock every night because to keep the cases low on the island because they didn't have that many, they didn't have the resources to. So I'm going up and down and I see this guy constantly, right? And he always has his hat like this and walking and walking. And so one day my mom said, "Oh, I saw this really cute guy. He's going up and down the hill." I'm like, "I wonder which house he's staying at." So I'm going down the next day and it was like 2 seconds. He looked me in the face because I was like, why would his head always be down? I realized it must be a celebrity. It was Harry Styles, who was in the massive band One Direction and then became, a huge star. So I go back up to the house and I don't tell my mom. I just said, Mom, I want to let you know that I figured out who was on the hill. And she goes, how would you know who he is? I go, well, I just looked him up on the internet and I show her the photo. She goes, you found him? I go, he's a massive star. It's Harry Styles. So those are the kind of things that would happen randomly, just living there and being there.
We would like to take a moment in this episode to thank our sponsors. Palm Beach Dog Academy is located right here in the heart of sunny South Florida. Founded by Jeff Nelson, who did his training at the Harvard of Dog Training Academies at the Tom Rose School in Missouri. I can say firsthand that Jeff not only has the credentials and the experience, he knows how to train dogs properly. He trained my beloved Oscar, our furry favorite guy who lived till 19 years of age. For more information about Jeff's packages and his academy, please visit palmbeachdogacademy.com.
But Dylan and I,
Yeah, it did have this draw. It was like a DL spot where it had this draw and like a kind of like DL buzz of famous people. The guy, remember Tom, who was the head of Viacom, used to come every year with his family.
Tom Freston knew him for
So
years.
far. Yeah, but that's not really what I remember about Jamaica. It's like,
We're giving a little of a crumble of why people find it so
yeah,
beautiful. But
right.
Dylan, you did hang out with Billy Baldwin for like 2 months when he shot that movie there.
No,
Alec Baldwin's brother.
no, for like 2 weeks we hung out like every day. Yeah, for like 2 weeks.
That was really funny. But also the appeal for Dylan was like this white guy in Jamaica whose patois was so good and still is. That's why he was friends with everybody, whether they were locals, tourists coming in, people he would meet at the beach, because he spoke proper country patois.
Well, I just remember actually many years later, my very good friend Gabe, he told me something that I didn't even know. So he told me that because I was telling him about Jamaica and I think we were like listening to reggae one day in my car. And he said, I remember when we were in elementary school and it was something like, they had in the auditorium like a dance feature where I think it was like African. They had these people come over and do this like African dance or something like that, and this music and these drums or something. And he said that he saw me sit up in the middle of the auditorium and I started dancing. And I was like, I don't know, I think I was like 10, 11 years old. And he said I started dancing this like rhythm with this like African thing or whatever which is very transferable, a lot of it to Caribbean, Jamaican reggae and stuff. But it's kind of like that vibe. And he said he was like, his jaw dropped. He was like, what the heck? It was like, I turned in. He's like, it's like I morphed into this
Do you
like,
remember what you were doing where you're like, whiny, whiny?
I didn't even remember. what he was talking about until he
Right.
told me about that. And he told me at lunch one day, and he was speaking. He was like, "I couldn't believe it." So, but I think that's interesting because it kind of spoke to how, even though I'm American, but I spent so much time there growing up, back and forth. We used to go back and forth 5 times a year.
But for long periods of time, like the entire
Yeah,
summer, we would be there from Memorial Day to Labor Day.
right. So it just kind of felt like we lived there half the time, and because we kind of did, and a lot of the culture and vibes and everything were ingrained in me. And I remember I used to understand patois, and I could kind of like talk it in my mind. I could understand it 100% at a certain point, but I didn't feel confident speaking it because I felt like I almost like I didn't wasn't allowed to or something because I was a white boy from foreign, as they call it, and I didn't feel it. And then and then I remember one time, like, there was all these things like, I used to hang out with all the locals and go fishing and dig up yams and all these root vegetables, and we'd boil pots of soup or steamed fish and dumpling and all these authentic things. And in the Jamaican culture, there's a lot of smoking weed. There's a lot of drinking alcohol. They drink a lot of Guinness, drink a lot of rum. You're just hanging out, drinking Guinness, catching a vibe, listening to some music, and then at some point you're cooking some food. So you're chilling, smoking weed, drinking, catching a buzz, laughing, joking around, listening to some music, cooking some real Dutch pot of food. And I used to smoke a ton of weed. I won't even go near it now. But growing up, I smoked a lot of weed. And I remember saying to a guy, for some reason, this was like a turning point. And I said, I want to light my spliff. And I said, hey, so and so. I said, let me see that lighter, which I guess is like my kind of English. Let me
Right.
see that. And he said, yo, Dylan, see the lighter, yeah? You want to see it or you want me to pass give you? Like, do you want to see it or you want me to pass it to give it to you?
Right. Like you weren't speaking to
And
him
he said
properly.
to said it to me like that with this like macho, like he was like, "You want to see it like that? You want me to pass give you?" And I was like, "Whoa!" And he was like, "Yo, talk like a Jamaican and stop little, like
Yeah.
punk." He was like, "Talk. You know what this is? You know what it is? Like, talk it." Something like zapped in me, and I was like, "All right, I do know actually what you're saying, and I do know how to say that, and I know how to say all of that because I've heard you guys say it a million times." And he kind of like gave me this zing to start, and then I just started doing it that trip.
But what did you say? How did you react? And what were your first like words actually speaking it to Jamaicans? Do you remember what you said?
I don't remember. I just remember that particular moment being a turning point, like I said, where I knew how to speak patois. I could understand like 80, 90% of what they were saying, maybe more, basically fluent. I was talking it in my mind, but I didn't have this like confidence. I was young. And then he did that to me. And I was like, yo, pass, give me the bomba clock lighter.
Yes, Frederick. Whopping, whopping, whopping.
And it like sparked something. And then I started doing it. And then I started doing it more and more and more. And then before I knew it, I was speaking like fluent country hardcore, like ghetto slang patois. And because that's how they talk it out there. They're not like in Kingston, they have these accents and they talk patois. They're very like
They're
very,
uptown.
yeah, it's like very like British,
It's
right?
so British. Like,
And
yes,
up,
my dear. Yes, my darling. You good? Yeah,
yeah,
it's very, yeah, it's different.
it's
This is
different.
country style.
Yeah, but, yeah, so anyways, that was that, but, like, I don't know how much time we have, but what do you want? I mean, I have so many memories and
Well,
thoughts
I was just thinking of something that
growing
happened.
up in Jamaica.
Do you
Am I just
do you
gonna be
remember? Okay, I don't know if you were there for this, but Jamie and I met the Coast Guard. Were you there during that trip?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Dagmar,
Yeah,
here's a good
you got
one.
disappeared for, like, a night, and they thought you went missing, they literally called, like, the authorities.
Wait, hold on, hold on. So
Yeah,
my dad's best friends, Todd and Jane, still their best friends. They were just here visiting. Their daughter and I, Jamie, Dylan was best friends with their son, Jason. Jamie and I were on the beach where Tom Cruise shot half that movie called Dragon Bay. And Dragon Bay Beach. We used to play volleyball there and swim. And Jamie and I met the Coast Guard. These guys were like 18, 20-year-olds. We were 16, I guess, 17 maybe. And they invited us to a bonfire party that evening. And we knew there was no way we were going to be able to go. And our dads were not going to let us. So that's right. was Jason there too? No, it was just you. I told Dylan, listen, we're putting the pillows in the bed. So, if they crack the door open, you pile up the pillow, you make it like there's a body in there. Okay. And for some reason, they came back and Todd was like, something looks off here. They pulled him out like, oh my God, where are the girls? So which was crazy back then. This is like late 90s. We hitched a ride in the pitch black dark to the party. And we're hanging out with these guys and we're just drinking beers. Like nothing was happening. We were having so much fun. But all of a sudden, I was like, we have to go. Like we're here too long and I don't want it to get weird. And we need to get out. Like we have to abort the mission now. Right. So we decided to leave. And then what happened was this huge tractor trailer, massive, stopped in the middle of the road because we had our thumbs up, two white girls trying to get home. And we're in the truck and I see my dad, Dylan, in the Pajero, in the blue, the blue Montero, flying by with Todd on the other side of the road because Dagmar, there's only one road you can go on like this, like looking for us. And I was like, oh my God. So we told the guy, and this big tractor, that's what they sounded like. You have to drop us at the bottom of the hill. Our hill is so windy, you won't make it up. And it'll be so loud, it'll wake other people up. So we rush back up. We get up there. We get in the bed. And they come back and they're like, are you bitches serious? Like, really? You're so busted. So things like that. I mean, you can't write the script for that. These things literally would happen.
Man, all these stories are coming to mind when like now I'm remembering all these different things. Actually, Jamie's brother Jason, you're right, he was like a brother to me. He passed away a few years ago, unfortunately, but that guy was like a brother to me, especially growing up. And I used to rent a dirt bike every time I went there for a few years. I was like barely getting my learner's permit. I was like that age, like 15, 16. I convinced my parents to rent me this dirt bike it was an enduro, which means like it was like an off-road dirt bike, but it was street legal and it had license plate with a speedometer and lights and turning signals.
That's how you learn to drive stick shift, right?
Yeah, and I had this helmet
What are your camera? Okay.
anyway, so Jay and I, another story. This is so crazy. I mean, we were crazy because I was nuts. I mean, I was like, smoking weed and I was drinking rum, and I would get on my dirt bike. I had this dirt bike for like 5 years and I would take it everywhere. I mean, I would take it to other cities like 2, 3, 4 hours away. I would take road trips and it was so fun. I'd go up in the mountains, go to weed plantations, go to waterfalls. I mean, I went everywhere on that dirt bike. I just remember one time Jason and I, we went to Reach Falls one day, beautiful waterfall. And he dirt bike too. And we were like Tasmania. We were riding so crazy. We got up in the morning. We were so pumped up. Like, when you're young and you get up and you're like so stoked. And we were riding our dirt bike so fast and so I'm like, I was like so crazy. And I remember we went around this like bend and there was one of those huge Mack trucks, and we were doing like 80 miles an hour, like mental pace, like maniac. And this thing, we had a brush of death. Like it almost is.
That's really scary.
We both pulled over, and I'll never forget the expression on his face. He looked at us like, "Yo, bro, like that is like so out of control." I mean, it was terrifying.
Dylan,
But
don't you remember when we were with Cooch and we were in the grill and the guy who was the famous artist that had just passed before Dylan, that was Dennis Brown, right? And we were like, we have to get to Montego Airport now. The guy's shoulder popped out, so he couldn't take us. And we're like, remember
no,
Air
but
Jamaica?
hey, name was Dennis Brown. He looked like Dennis Brown. He
Right.
had the ID hanging from the mirror, said Dennis Brown, and he played Dennis Brown music the whole time. It was like a weird.
But wait, here's the kicker. Air Jamaica back in the day used to load people at Montego Bay. Then it would fly to Kingston, which was like a 20-minute flight. We'd all stay on the plane, and then everyone from Kingston would get on, and we'd all go to New York. So you and I and Cooch, this is Dylan's ex-girlfriend. This is after Dylan just won all this money singing at the reggae bar at oh God, what's his name? He passed away recently. He's famous. I'll think of it in a second. I'm
I
looking at
want
his face.
singing contest.
Yeah. So we were late because our driver, we had like hired this driver for 5 days. We met this guy and he was cool. He was like our brethren. His shoulder popped out. And we were like, we're really sorry. We'll pop you back in, but we have to get to the airport. We have to make the flight to from Montego Bay to Kingston. or
Same.
mom is going to flip out and say, "Where are the kids? They didn't make the flight." And his name was Dennis Brown, and he was playing the music. And I remember you were sitting in the front with him, and Cooch and I were in the back.
I remember that.
And he was driving so fast because we were like, from the grill to Montego Bay, it was hours. And back then the roads were really bad. So this huge, massive tree was in the road that was down, massive. And he was trying to skimp by it, and a tractor trailer was coming from the other side. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. I'm way too young. I have so much to do in my life.
Yeah, it was
We
bad.
I mean, Dagmar, I'm talking about, we just skirted by. And then we were like, Jesus, Lord have mercy. It was crazy. We get to the airport. We like check in. They're calling our names. This is the only time I've ever heard Chloe Florea, Dylan Florea, or what, like your last chance to, they call your names, the last chance to get on the flight, dripping in sweat. We get on the plane and we're like, oh my God, we made it. And then we land, we get to Kingston. Mom came on. She was alone. Dad was running. And Dylan and I were in our regular seats, 2A and B. And mom comes and says that we're like, hey, like nothing happened. It was just like
I remember
that.
that was another. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of crazy things like that happened there. But
Oh my God, that was nuts.
I loved it so much because, man, there was just like it's just so rich with like the culture and the music and the food. I used to be so into the food. I mean, I would get in, like Anthony Bourdain style. I would get in my car or on my dirt bike, and I would stop by all these different spots. Like, I'm gonna go eat some goat head soup here today. Like, I'm gonna
Goat
go.
head, chicken foot soup. He would eat all of it.
I would go to all these friggin'
All
spots,
the jerk spots.
all these different foods, and then I used to hang out, guys, and we would cook. Like, we would catch fish and, or whatever it was, and we would cook a pot of food, and it's just like a whole ritual, and you hang out, you're just smoking and drinking, listening to music, hanging with the guys. It was just so many good hangouts and so much fun stuff. And the land is just, people don't even know, but
It's just rich. It just has so much
they
richness
have so many rivers. I read
and
a
resources,
lot of resources, right? The
natural
land is very
resources.
rich, very fertile, and it's just such a real paradise with all the beaches and the coves and the mountains and the rivers and the creeks and the waterfalls. It was so amazing, and the music is so awesome, and the people are awesome too.
We would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Cafe Bastille originated in Miami, now has a location in downtown Fort Lauderdale for almost 2 years. Located steps from Las Solas and sitting on the canal, I can personally say I frequent there often. Their lattes are wonderful, hot or cold. The velvet pancakes just melt in your mouth. The pommes frites are on point, and the bottomless mimosas for brunch all day long are absolutely fabulous. For more information, please go to cafebastiledowntown.com.
But there is like a little bit of a shadow side, or a lot as well, which I kind of start to get disenchanted about, to be totally honest. And it almost pains me to say that because I have so much love and I had so many fond memories there. But there is I remember my friends,
My people down.
yeah, my friends or my friends' parents, or they go, you go to Jamaica, aren't you afraid? Like, aren't you
God,
afraid?
everybody would say that to us our whole life.
And I would laugh at them, be like, "What are you talking about?" Because I just felt so, like, local, and I had a whole group of friends over there. I had a whole group of friends, I had girlfriends, I had so many, I was just, like, so embedded there, and, I had businesses I was trying to I tried to start a bunch of businesses there, all kinds of stuff, but I remember, yeah, I just got, like, the people are amazing, but there's a side of the culture, like, in the dance music that's kind of like hood hip hoppy, thuggy, where it's very aggressive and like macho. It's just really aggressive. It's like really aggressive and like kind of gangsterish. And they used to try to intimidate me all the time. I go downtown, I go to the bar, I go to a club, and they'd be like, "Yo, Dylan, buy me a beer, man, buy me a beer," or you know,
My God, they would say to me, "Yo, Dylan sister." I'm like, he's not here. I am not a bank, and I don't work for Dylan. But Dylan, we don't want to bash anything because we had so
I'm
many
not
great.
I'm not
I
bad.
actually just thought of something really funny that you're gonna ready. Here goes the flag, and blue is coming in, and there comes green, and orange is in the back, and there comes yellow, and go around the corner. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Are you seriously asking me if I know what you're talking about?
Okay, so Dagmar, there is this guy. Oh my god, I love him dearly. I could
What?
see his face. Woody and Cherry that owned Woody's Lowbridge, they had the best original burgers and hot dogs, and they would have at this hotel. I'm not joking, a crab race, and we would all gather around, and they would have put marks on them, blue, like different colors, and number them. And Woody would do it like he was at the racetrack, like the horses. Oh, do you remember how he used to do it?
He just like you used to do it. He right, exactly. Like we were at horse races. There was like I think they were different colors, and there it was like he'd let them out. He'd have them covered in like in a
Yep.
box, and then he'd lift it off. He'd lift the bottle off, and there was like different rings that went out, and the first one to make it out to the outer ring would win. And he would. He'd open the thing up, and he'd go, "There goes the flag," and then like play, sound like music in the background, like the bell going, like the horses were racing. That was so fun and exciting.
Crabs, Dagmar, and we would all go wild. You can bet on them, and but he would literally do it like at the racetrack. And yellow is inching in, and green is coming right behind. Around the corner comes orange, and it was just those were the days, man. Those were the days.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, soldier crab racing. You know what's funny is that there's soldier crabs. They call them soldier crabs. I don't know what else they're called around the world, but they're the little crabs in the shells. The little crabs in the shells. The ones that they I think they change shells as they get longer.
No, I
As they
think it is like you said. I think it is the soldier
They get
crabs.
they get bigger. They're called soldier crabs. But
Yeah,
I went fishing with a friend of mine with Art, and I said, "Where are we gonna get bait?" And he took me to this little place in the jungle, like just off the side of the road, where there was like a little tiny little creek like coming out of the rock. So there was like water and moisture. I guess they were drawn towards or like attracted towards the water. And we hiked in for just a couple of minutes, and there was like thousands of soldier crabs. There were so many of them, and we collected like a backpack full of them, and we used like a bucket of them, and we used that for bait one day, the soldier crabs. And I'm like, damn, now we're using them for bait, and we went fishing that day. But you kind of cut me off before. I don't know why, but there is a part about Jamaica because there is. There's the light side and the shadow side. I mean, there's the pros and the cons.
I
There
wasn't
is.
cutting you off. I just didn't want our viewers and listeners to think that we have this negative depiction of a place that we love growing up.
I love and I have so many fond memories, but there is also that element for me after when I was younger, there was I think I was just like I had different outlook and I don't know, I was like more fearless and I mean, looking back, I almost got killed countless times. I was crazy. I used to go in the hood.
Forbid.
I used to go everywhere and I mean, one time I was like, I met this girl. I went to Ocho Rios. It was like 2 hours away with my two friends. I had just closed this deal, so, I thought I was like, all this money, we'd go to the clubs. And I was like buying bottles and, all this crazy
Chomps
stuff.
Pondy Ice. Chomps
Yeah.
Pondy Ice.
Yeah. So we went and had a really wild and fun weekend in Ocho Rios. And I met this girl there.
Careful. We got to keep it PG for the listeners. This is not a,
I met this girl there and we were vibing and hanging out and we hooked up that weekend and then like we liked each other and then I said, you should come back to Portland and come hang out. I said, "Oh, I know Portland. I go there sometimes, this and that." And I used to go there a lot and this and that. So she started coming over to Portland a lot. And then for a couple of trips, I'll go back and forth. I was hanging
do
out.
I know who you're referring to?
Nope, you don't know her. I was seeing her, and long story short, it turned out that there were these brothers. There was like these five brothers in Port Antonio that everyone knows that they like found or they robbed this big drug shipment. They're like
Beamer
big drug,
Boys.
yeah, they're like these big drug dealers. So, and I was friends with them, because I used to go out a lot. Anyways, long story short, it turned out that it was his recent ex girlfriend, this girl that I was seeing, like the head boss, like of this crew.
The Don Dada.
Yeah, and he found out, and he was jealous, and there was, like, a big beef between us for a couple of years, and he stopped being friends with me, and they were, like, making threats, and they try to like punk me down and all this stuff. I was fearless. I was like, whatever, man. Like, but the point I was getting at is that there is this element in Jamaica. It's in the dancehall culture where they're very like aggressive. And as I got older, my bandwidth for that changed. I got like disenchanted where they're
Yeah.
just constantly like begging you money.
They never knew that story that you just told, that guy, and they were, I knew you were friends with those guys, but I did not know that they were trying to
Dude,
come for you and like bully you,
one,
or I didn't know any of that.
I have like 20 stories. Like I was so embedded in the local community because
Yeah, I know that, but
out,
I did not know that story.
I was always out and, out at night, a lot of riffraff and things happened. And I mean, people were very protective of me. Everyone loved me. I was very generous. I tried to help a bunch of friends start different businesses and I gave to the community. And, if my friends are like, oh, can you pay my light? My mom, she can't pay her light bill. The electricity turned off. I go pay the light bill and whatever, just stuff like that. And I was always trying to do things for the community and give somebody a start at something or even give them some advice or just whatever, And they used to say to me, my friends, say, Dylan, you're a white man with a black man heart. I was like, I did like,
And if Dylan wasn't coming around and they'd see me, I would. It's like he was a local celebrity. They would track me down the street. Yo, Dylan, sister, Empress, and I'm like, I'm not. No, no, Dylan's sister. This is not her. And they're like, yes, it is. And I'm like, oh my god.
yeah, I got around on
Anyway,
that bike at one point for about 5 years. I think I covered every single corner,
crazy.
whole entire parish.
Wild. This is why we love Problem Solve Her, because you just told a massive story of something that you solved. Problem Solve Him is that you had all this stuff and you had the conflicts with the locals, and you were fearless and everyone loved you and it all worked out in the end. So you solved your own, and you solved in your mind, even though you were disenchanted at some things, you have more favorable memories than not.
Definitely more with by flying colors. The other thing too about so the obviously the music and the food is like so big in the culture. The music is so awesome and the vibes and everything like that.
And
But
reggae,
the
Jamaica's
food,
home of reggae and red stripe.
totally. But the food, the cuisine in Jamaica is so good and it's so vast and it's so rich and it's so full of colors and all of these amazing things. One of my best friends who's Dominican, I actually, at one point, I rented a house for like 2 years around the block from his mom. And I used to go over there a few nights a week she used to invite me all the time and she would cook. Sometimes I cook with her. She was a really good Dominican cook, a little similar to Jamaican, Caribbean food, but different. She,
DR is in the West
she
Indies.
he recently went to Jamaica for her first time ever, and he called me up and he said, "Dude, my mom," and I look at her like a really like a top. She's a really good chef. She used to make everything from scratch. He said, "My mom won't stop talking about it." She said that food in Jamaica is by flying colors the best food she's ever had in the world.
But it's also because it's so fresh and there's no
It,
pesticides and everything's organic, and it's the culmination of the Blue Mountains, right? The
oh yeah.
sea, the Caribbean Sea. That's why the coffee is so incredible. But I'd love to do like to be continued on this episode and just
By
leave
the
these
way,
crumbs
they
here. Dylan, we love you. We
love you
hear
too.
you.
I want to throw one more wild twist at the end. I just thought of.
Okay, but I really got to go.
Okay, so I had heard about this, and in other countries like Haiti and other places, voodoo is very prevalent. And I knew there was some make that they call it obia.
No
Obia.
one should, buddy, Duppy.
No, a duppy is a ghost.
Same thing as voodoo to me.
No, they call voodoo obia because remember they had a lot of traditions from Africa. Because a lot of the
Right.
they were slaves. Unfortunately, they were slaves that were brought over to sugarcane fields, so they carried a lot of their traditions. Now, this is a total different twist. This is also related to my connection to Jamaica is multi-life. It's in different lives because if you believe in that sort of thing, my friend who does shamanic practices, she has a mentor who's like this serious shaman who I connected with, and had some health issues, and I was talking to her, and I said, I think I had like maybe somebody was trying to do voodoo back in the day to me in Jamaica because I'm like, I just had weird like intuition. And I told my friend that, and she said, "Let me ask my mentor that." So her mentor went. I had this whole thing. I didn't even tell you this. So she went, and she printed this whole story. She did this vision quest, and she saw me in a past life,
Wow.
Jamaica, where I was like uh, a half white, half black guy, and I was a doctor, and I was bridging like herbalism because they have all these bush
In
doctors they call
Jamaica?
them.
You were
Wow, you're
in your
really
past
going in
life in
another realm.
Jamaica?
Yeah, you guys finish this. I really have to go. I love you. You guys
She
finish
told
this
me this
story.
crazy
You tell
story.
me, Dylan. I'm listening.
You tell Dad I love you. I have to go. Like I'm late. She's WhatsApping me now. Where are you? Love you guys.
I just found that really interesting that after all these years, this lady went into this like shamanic journey and she told me this wild story about how I had all these like voodoo things that happened to me in a past life in Jamaica. And in this life, I was like clearing a lot of that mess up and I did what I had to do.
And it makes
I don't want
makes sense, right?
Yeah, I don't want to get into the whole story, but I believe in shit like that. And it really resonated because I just remember, like, I just had such a deep connection with it when I went there. And I always felt like I just felt so connected to that land. I don't know how else to say it other than that. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't like just in my mind or where like, not only did I love that place, it was just such an awesome place growing up and it was so cool, but there was this very magnetism, like it just felt like I belong. It just felt so familiar. It just felt so familiar. And so when I had heard that, I was like, oh man, that makes so much sense. Like I've been here before, maybe in a different body, in a different timeline, but that was a cool kind of full circle moment that happened a couple of months ago.
Yeah. Did it feel like home? You came home?
It just felt like totally like I just felt so connected to that place. I felt so connected to that land and it was just so familiar and it just felt so right. And yeah, it did feel like that sense of like home and all of that on a soul like energetic level. But
Why did you leave Jamaica?
well, I didn't really leave Jamaica, but because I just kind of stopped going. I just stopped going there as often, and some different things in my life happened. And then for a while, I wasn't crazy about flying, so it wasn't so easy for me to go. And I don't know, it was just different stage of my life. We used to go all the time as a family. It was like very routine. And then life changes, and yeah.
Did you miss it? Or do you miss it?
Miss it a lot, but, Chloe kind of tried to deflect when I was talking about the other aspect of Jamaica that I eventually did have some feelings of feeling disenchanted, as I described it, like in later years, because it kind of got exhausting. Is like a very persistent. I think I just got to a different place in my life where I was like, that's kind of annoying. I'd rather go to a different island, tropical island where they're a little less like that because whatever. So, but it's not like I hate it or I'll never go back. But there was like a thing like that where I went from, I mean,
Yeah, perhaps you just needed closure um in your younger
no, I
years.
love Jamaica. I would go back. I mean, I love Jamaica and I haven't been in years, but I would go back. It's just not like the first place where, and I did that so much. I've been there so much. I'd like to check out some other islands and stuff like that. But Jamaica, I have a Jamaican tattoo, a Jamaican flag tattoo on my arm. And I got that when I was 18 years old. And I just felt so, and then it says blessed on the top of it. I just felt so connected and like embedded in that place and that culture. And, I mentioned that because Jamaica's a part of me and everything. But it's kind of interesting and it's bittersweet to look back now, 45 years old, and there was a period for I was a baby till my mid to my late 20s that we went there. I mean, I did the math once and I calculated because it was back and forth, but I spent over collectively a third of the first 30 years of my life I
Wow.
spent there. So I love Jamaica. I could say, I mean, I don't know, I feel like Chloe and I were just rambling and talking over each other, just thinking of all these cool different stories. And I could do that for hours. I mean, that was just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many cool and fun things. I could talk about Jamaica stories for a pretty long time.
We would like to take this moment and break in the episode to thank our sponsors. Robin Lord Law is New Jersey's premier criminal defense attorney for over 2 decades. Robin believes in justice for all and an aggressive legal approach in the courtroom, defending her clients with facts and passion. With an extremely high success rate, Robin has caught a lot of attention in the media with her bold approach in the courtroom and fabulous style. For more information, please contact Robin directly at robinlordlaw.com.
Yeah, which is beautiful. And I think so interesting for anybody, how you coming from a different culture adapted to the Jamaican culture and made it yours. When you look back now with 45 years, what shaped you the most there?
Well, one of the biggest imprints that I took away from Jamaica is like natural life, natural living, being connected to the land, walking barefoot, and growing your own food and learning about herbal medicines and all of these bush things. It has a very, very rich culture. The people are really alive and listening to music and stuff like that. And it's also, they'll say it's second world, but it's very third world-ish. I mean, now it's modernized a lot, but being in the country. So just like that natural life, natural living, vibing, vibes, energy, being connected to the land, all of the fruit. Yeah, just natural life, like the beach and, they have all these different things. You have a symptom, whatever it is, they have a tea for everything. They don't use the word herbs. They call it bush. We have a bush. You have a bush you can drink for this. We have a bush to drink that. We have a bush. They have bush doctors, which are herbal doctors. They call them bush doctors. They have bush doctors. So they have a remedy for everything. And there's some guys that are called bush doctors that are, in most cases, it's been handed on down multi-generational from the Maroons, which was a tribe from Africa that came there that ran away from the slave traders, and they started their own town and village, and they defected and they went off. But they have some multi-generational like bush doctors that are actually like serious. These guys are one with the land, like kind of like you'd see like a shaman almost in the rainforest in South America or Central America. They have bush doctors. And I hung around with some of those guys, and they taught me a lot about remedies and natural life and curing diseases and working with Mother Nature too, and the rains and the soil. And that was actually one of my biggest inspirations, farming and cultivating and growing fruits and vegetables, permaculture. And that inspired me, kind of planted some seeds to yeah, I'm getting like kind of a little existential, but planting some seeds in my mind and in my heart to, now later in life to some things, it was like the groundwork. I see like the silver lining in that, some interest that I'm looking to get involved with now around projects around that kind of thing. So the answer really is nature. The nature there is just so spectacular.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Like we have natural remedies in Germany too, and we have herbalists in Germany because we have mostly herbs they use in Jamaica,
Yeah.
right? Do you think
Yeah.
that this upbringing influenced you now today that you're going into the direction like wellness coaching?
Like I said, it was definitely planting a lot of seeds around that, and it really inspired me to want to, more than anything, to get a piece of land to steward and to cultivate. It's like when you have a piece of land in Jamaica, you got everything because you could work with it.
Hmm.
You could work depending on how things go and what your budget are, and what life gives you and how hard you work for it and you dream. It's like you got a piece of land, you got everything. You have everything because nature will provide. So yeah, it definitely inspired me to want to, more than anything, is to have some kind of like a modern day homestead, a piece of land where I can work with the land and garden and do permaculture and food forest and things around that. It definitely inspired me. That's the biggest takeaway, because I go down there and the next thing I know, I'm walking barefoot and the dirt around, and this guy's showing me all of his seedlings and what he's growing and how he's growing it and why he's growing it. And these are guys that are just like living in a shack, some of them, on a farm in the jungle or whatever, on the side of a hill, on the side of a mountain somewhere, kicking it. And they're growing their plantain, they got their coconut, they're like so dialed in, they're living off the land. They're living off the land. Chickens, eggs, the whole thing.
Yeah. We love you. We hear you. We see you. Please subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcast, on YouTube. Check out our website, ProblemSolvHer.com, without the E after solve, and be with us on this journey and ride to identify our problems and find many, many solutions. Bye. Please note that the views shared by our guests are their own. We invite honest stories and diverse perspectives, but they don't necessarily reflect our opinions or serve as professional advice.